We're going to the pasture to meet Adelaide and ask her if she has a way to send us back where we came from. I don't know who she is or how she is or when or why she is, but as for where she is where we will go. To Adelaide, Adelaide, come on and join the Adelaide parade. Adelaide, to Adelaide, we're going to Adelaide's house today.
Greetings, holiday shoppers. There are now 81 shopping days left until Christmas, and you know what that means. That means it's time for another episode of Christmas Creeps, your one-stop shop for holiday movies and TV shows all year round. My name is Joseph Wade, and guess what, folks? It's the most wonderful time of the year. That's right, it's time for Home for the Horror Days.
Happy Halloween!
Where we talk about all things spooky and creepy here on Christmas Creeps. Sometimes they're Christmas related, sometimes they're not, but you know what? This week is a very special occasion, not just because of the episode of programming that we're bringing you today, but we have, as always, my good pal and co-host, Mr. Bradford.
Hi.
Hi, Brad. How are you this evening?
I'm good. I came here to burgle your turts.
Oh, no. Well, I'm going to hold on to my turts for now.
Aw.
And we have a very special guest, long-time listener, first-time participant here is my lovely fiancée, Nikki.
Yay.
Please don't take my turts.
Can't make any promises, Nikki.
No promises tonight, folks. Tonight, like I said, sometimes we do Christmas things and sometimes we don't, but because it's the start of spooky season, we're talking about the 2014 Cartoon Network series Over the Garden Wall, which is not really Christmassy, but it does have a nice, good, spooky, sort of Halloween flavor to it. And we thought, what better time than now to discuss it, partly because also, Nikki and I just discovered this, in the last month or so, and we are both just entranced by it.
Yeah, during this past month, I think we've rewatched it 3 or 4 times already.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
I know. We're committed.
It's tangentially Christmas related. It's more Christmas related than some things we've done on this show that we've argued are Christmas related. Because he takes a Santa hat and takes all the wool off of it for his hat.
Oh, that's true, yeah. And I
that's
think
more than Satan Claus in The Last Boy Scout, which is my gold standard for the biggest reach we've ever done on this entire show.
And we've had some pretty big reaches, too. So, when we say that this is more Christmassy, you know that we mean it.
I think it doesn't matter if it's Christmassy or not, because it's just so good.
Right. And
It's
there's
so good.
There's, the progression from, Halloween to Christmas in the show proper. So, it's a valid reading to say that this kind of Christmas related, sort of, somewhat. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But first things first, Brad. Can check.
So I'm breaking tradition here a couple ways. I know I usually complain about pumpkin beers on the show, but it felt like it was time to dip back in. So I have a Southern Tier Pumpkin Imperial Pumpkin Ale, and it's a bottle rather than a can. I know I'm usually go for the cans, but and it's pretty good.
Nice.
I'm not a huge sweet beer person, pumpkin beer person, but when the time is right, like it is right now, the leaves are starting to turn, the days are getting cooler and shorter.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about right. How about you all?
Oh, yeah. Well, first things first, I do have, it's not a beer, it's a soda, so that's probably going to be bad news for me tonight. I'm drinking a Fanta Zero Sugar What the Fanta with a question mark. It's like their Halloween Fanta for the season.
You mean where the machine kind of messed up at the factory and they're like, what do we do with this palette of mixed grape and orange soda?
It is a very odd color.
Yeah, I'll say this. I like drinking it out of a can because I can't see what color it is.
Don't put it in a glass.
When you pour it, you will discover it is jet black.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just orange and grape mixed together.
Okay.
This is the sludge off the floor of the factory.
How does it taste?
Well, she said that right as I took a swig, and now I'm second guessing my entire life.
It's the American cheese of soda.
Yeah, kind of. It's honestly, it's not bad, but it's very strong.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm even going to finish that tonight. We also have Nikki has brought us a fine libation as well tonight.
I prefer wine. So I am drinking 19 Crimes Cabernet Sauvignon Frankenstein. So I picked out a spooky wine. So for the 19 Crimes, they had a Frankenstein and a Dracula, and we are drinking the Frankenstein bottle tonight.
Awesome. How's it tasting?
Like cheap wine.
Okay. Well, just
it gets the job done.
Yes, just by the sheer fact that you're drinking wine already takes the classiness of this whole affair up by like 2 notches.
Right.
There you go.
So,
right here on the back of the bottle, it says, Frankenstein wasn't a monster. He was just upset people didn't want to hang out. So next time an 8-foot-tall guest arrives, pour him a glass of this.
But doctor, no, I was gonna make a dumb. What is it? Pakaguchi the clown rather than Frankenstein was the doctor rather than the monster. But the moment's passed.
But the doctor is Frankenstein.
The doctor is Frankenstein.
I know that thing goes around a lot every Halloween. Like, well, the monster's name's not Frankenstein. It's been going on for like hundreds of years. But like, I'm gonna put it into it right now for anybody listening. So Victor Frankenstein made the monster, thought of the monster as his son. He named the monster Adam. So the monster's name is Adam Frankenstein.
So it's fine.
It's still Frankenstein. But honestly, Adam Frankenstein's a pretty rockin' name.
Man, that's pretty good.
Anyway, so folks, Over the Garden Wall is what we're here to talk about tonight to kick off Home for the Horror Days. And I feel like it's appropriate because it's not super spooky here in the beginning of October, and that's the way you want to ease into the Halloween season.
It's how you would introduce a younger person to horror. It's how I've heard it.
That's pretty good, I think. I was thinking about recommending it to my sister to have my niece and nephew watch it.
Mm-hmm.
They're 10 and 6. I feel like that's a pretty good spread for Over the Garden Wall.
That's the perfect age, yeah.
Well, the perfect age is also 32 when I first watched this.
37 for me, so yeah.
32 for me.
It's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
I first saw it a couple of years ago. I think I watched it first time in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I'd heard about it for a long time and seen like fan art of it online for a long time. Just never got around to it, but then, everybody had a lot of time on their hands in 2020.
Yeah, and how?
So it was on my watch list, and I ended up getting around to it in around this time of year, and it was chef's kiss. Not spooky, like you said, but I think the big thing that Over the Garden Wall does well is it nails a vibe. It goes for a vibe, and it nails it.
Yeah, definitely. And even then, saying it's not spooky is kind of underselling it, because there's plenty of spooky in this show.
Yeah.
It made me reminisce about like the spooky shows I used to watch when I was younger. Like Courage the Cowardly Dog. And then I actually had to call my sister today because I forgot the name of it, but there was a show called Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yes.
So.
Oh, man.
The Midnight Council.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I don't think we need to do a plot summary, do we? I mean, we could just probably do the broad strokes. Let's maybe preface all of this by saying if you have not seen Over the Garden Wall and it remotely looks like something you would be interested in, stop this podcast and go watch it first.
Immediately.
And so we don't spoil you on anything. It'd be, it's something you should go into knowing as little about it as possible, I feel.
And it's 10 episodes. They're all very short. You can watch it all in about an hour and a half.
I want to say the episodes are like 10 or 11 minutes each.
Yeah.
So you can knock it out in an afternoon. Easy.
At the time of this recording, it's on Hulu. It used to be on HBO, but, things happen. So it shifts around. Yeah. Get yourself a physical copy while you can, people. But, the thing to me... Actually, no, I want to do this because we haven't done this in a while. Bradford, would you like to play a game?
You know I love games, so yes. I think if
that
people
sounds
know...
like Saw, and this is like the spooky Halloween episode. So
Yeah, I thought about that. I wonder if I'm going to be in some sort of dismemberment type situation here soon.
Would you like to play a game?
I'm going to assume that it's our usual game.
Yeah, no, I'm going to put you in the grist mill and make you talk about Over the Garden Wall for 30 seconds.
Okay, in the grist mill. Oh, jeez.
It's not 30 seconds, it was 60 seconds.
60, I was about to say, putting me on the button here.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
I believe in you, Brad.
For the uninitiated, the game that we play here on Christmas Creep sometimes is I will give one of my co-hosts 60 seconds to summarize the plot of whatever it is we're talking about that week. If I can do it in under 60 seconds, whatever time's remaining, I will donate that dollar amount to a local charity.
Oh,
Let's
that's
go
cool.
since it's seasonally appropriate, let's go for like a food bank in our hometown area.
I know just the one. Yeah, we'll do that. So
Okay.
keep an eye out. We'll let y'all know when we've done that.
Oh, now the pressure's on.
Yeah, get ready, bud. Buckle up, buckaroo. Here we go. You ready?
No. Give me just a moment to compose my thoughts.
This is always my favorite part of the show.
To put people on the spot.
I want to do really well, but I
You're
also
so
want to
evil.
I want to do the plot justice. I don't want to be like,
I believe in you.
blah, 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 the end. I am ready.
Bradford, please summarize the plot of Over the Garden Wall in 60 seconds. Ready, set, go.
Two half-brothers, Greg and Wirt, wander through the forest and are lost. They are trying to find their way home. Along the way, they meet a number of fantastical creatures and situations, and eventually come to an understanding and find their way home. The end.
You son of a bitch.
Did I do it?
You did it in 16 seconds, my dude.
I mean,
I thought that was pretty
am
good.
Am I wrong? I could go into like the framing device, but that felt like overkill.
Oh no, we'll get into the framing device, but like that's the broad strokes of it right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Two kids
thank
wandering
you.
around in the woods, experiencing what can only be described as like a litany of old-timey horrors.
It's should we get into the history of the series really quick?
Oh, we can't. I don't know too much about it other than the creator, Patrick McHale, worked on Adventure Time before he created this show.
That's right. He got his start. He went to Cal Arts. He got his start working on The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. And then a lot of the storyboard artists and showrunners went on to work on Adventure Time because he went to the same school as Pendleton Ward.
Right.
And then during Adventure Time, this was sort of like his side project. He had done a pilot called Tome of the Unknown, which was based on a concept he had fleshed out earlier and had always kind of wanted to make into a series, and he got the opportunity to do it.
Have you watched Tome of the Unknown?
I hadn't until you sent it over.
It's fascinating because it's basically Over the Garden Wall, like fully formed, but it goes into some really like weird Adventure Time kind of tangents.
Yeah.
Like it's the vegetable people, really.
The vegetable people,
Giant birds.
Yeah, the giant birds that are giant even to Wirt and Greg. So the guy who is the guy in Tome of the Unknown, who's the main vegetable guy, is he's one of the musicians that worked on all the music for Over the Garden Wall. You might notice his voice in a lot of like the vocal tracks.
Yeah.
And then I think everybody else is pretty much locked in. You've got Elijah Wood. Pretty much the only voice actor that changes is Beatrice for whatever reason. But yeah, it's basically just like a smaller one-off episode of Over the Garden Wall.
It is, and it's got really nothing to do with anything else. It just kind of establishes the vibe, but the vibe is so. I don't want to just say good, but it's so strong.
So
I didn't think that one is as spooky as the miniseries was. Like I didn't see that.
No, it's a lot more cartoony than the main the miniseries.
It gets more into like when we first watched it, I was like, this is old timey Adventure Time, and that's really what that pilot is.
Yeah, the pilot itself.
But then the show proper is something a lot more difficult to explain because like Nikki and I have gone back and forth on this. Like, there's some deep stuff going on in this show that I don't think we've even hit the bottom of yet.
Yeah,
in
there's
our
a lot
personal
of
conversations.
There's a lot of symbolism, obviously. Like there's a bunch of levels to it. So the vibe, we can just go back to the vibe really quick before we dig in. It's
sure.
If for whatever reason you've decided not to watch this show and you need an idea of the vibe, it plays a lot off of like pre and early industrial Americana. So very pastoral, but still very New World, is the best way that I can describe it.
It reminds, the thing that I keep coming back to is that it reminds me a lot of like Washington Irving stories like Sleepy Hollow. Like
Yes.
that kind of vibe. Where it's there's nothing too like defined as far as the spooky elements, but it's just a general sort of like you don't know what's in the dark corners of the forest kind of vibe.
The unknown.
Right. The unknown.
The unknown, which is the name of the land that Greg and Wirt are wandering. So I guess we should get into our dramatis personae, unless anybody else wants to comment on the vibe.
Nikki, what's your take on the vibe?
I mean, overall, I would say spooky, and then I felt the vibe was ever changing. You know, like I felt like more so the vibe of the series itself, I got vibes from the characters.
Yeah.
And so, like, I felt like, you know, Greg was always so joyful and stuff like that. And then you had Wirt, and he changed throughout the series and stuff like that. So I felt like the vibe kind of changed as the characters changed.
Mm-hmm.
With, like, a spooky overtone throughout the thing. Because, you know, it started out chaotic, they're lost and stuff like that, and then it turned more somber as they lost hope. And then it became more determined, and then resourceful, and almost happy.
It really is like a hero's journey for Wirt, which is weird because in my mind, to me personally, he is very much like the stick in the mud character in this show.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, like, the vibe was always spooky, but then the vibe changed as the characters progressed. And it was definitely a progression as the episodes, you know, went on, for sure.
I totally get what you're saying, especially with the sort of the hero journey arc with Wirt, and then sort of this three act structure to it, really. You know, you have the first act where they're just trying to figure out where they are and what the unknown is and how to get home.
Like, it just starts off, they're dropped in, and there's a man with an axe. And so, like, that first one, you're just like, well, what the hell?
Like, what is going on? What have we got ourselves into?
Overall, though, despite the changes in Wirt and Greg, the unknown itself has this sort of pervasive sense of melancholy throughout it. You know, because it's taking place in late fall. You know, it deals with some themes of death and loss, and, you know, you can argue that the unknown, a lot of people have made the comparison that it might be purgatory, especially when you see the framing device later in the series. I just love it. It's so very fall. It's very autumnal. You
kind of see the progression of that from the start of the series to the end, because you come to find out that the show takes place on Halloween, right? Like eventually the overarching, like, what's actually going on is happening on Halloween night. But then you go back to the beginning of the series, It's like, okay, so Halloween's just ended. Things are very spooky, and we're being attacked by a giant dog, and there's, like, a man with an axe, and it's very scary. And then as you progress through the series, the spookiness kind of leaches out, and the color palette gets colder, and, like, it physically, like, you see the snow start to creep into the show, and, like, by the end of it, it's like, it's kind of depicting, like, the transition from Halloween to Christmas over the course of the show. Yes. Which I think is fascinating. I kind of love that kind of stuff. But...
See, I wonder if they do that on purpose, because, you know, like, Wirt, before he, like, gets his determination at the very, very end, he loses hope. Right. And, you know, like, how Brad was talking about how it's kind of like, it has that kind of, like, death overtone. Like, you know, fall, all the leaves are dying, all the plants are dying and all that. And it's kind of going into that, like, kind of decay thing. So it's like, he's losing determination. It's kind of like setting in that death overtone. Because if you do lose your hope, you turn into that tree and...
You chopped up and
you die, basically.
The Edelwood trees overtake you.
So.
Yeah.
I guess that's as good an opportunity to talk about the characters themselves. 'Cause, I mean, we've talked about Greg and Wirt. Those are the main, like, two brothers. Wirt is Elijah Wood. He's, like, the teenager character. Real piece of work, this kid. I don't like him.
I think he's a normal teenager.
Oh, you don't like Wirt? I love
I
Wirt.
connected with him a lot.
I
That anxiousness.
I love both.
see. I
Yeah.
think it's just this is why the show is so good, because you can latch onto any one character and be like, "That's me." And for me, that's definitely Greg.
I mean, I love Greg, but like I thought Wirt was a very normal teenage character.
Oh, he totally is. But like his reaction to
Yeah.
everything is just, "No, that's dumb. We're leaving." And
Which is, he's the straight man. It's like he has the reaction that any reasonable person would have.
no, I
to
get it,
whatever's
and
going
I
on
get
in
that. That's
unknown,
like
for
the
most
tone
part.
they're going for with that character. That's what his purpose is. It's just I don't like him.
First of all, if
It-
you are lost in
Okay.
the woods and there's a man with an axe and Dan is sitting over there throwing candy and like playing with his frog, are you telling me you're not going to be like, "What the fuck, Dan? Get your life together."
No, I totally would.
Right. Because I know you.
And in that moment, I would be like,
Oh.
"Oh man, I'm Elijah Wood in this scenario. God damn it!"
Yes.
You're the
I'm
Hobbit man. You're the Hobbit man. Yeah, Wirt is the older brother in this situation, and then there's this half brother Greg who is still a child, and he's the comedic relief of the series and brings much needed and wonderful levity to basically the entire
Yeah,
series.
absolutely nothing about the circumstances phases Greg at all.
He's a non sequitur machine.
If only we
It's
could
great.
all be like that.
Would be like-
Correct. Yeah, if only we could all be like that.
Greg and the secret best character in the show, Greg's pet frog, whose name changes in every single episode.
Right.
Mr. President.
The frog whose name is either George Washington or Wirt Jr. or Greg Jr. or Benjamin Franklin.
Kitty.
Kitty.
Kitty. Or, yeah. I think canonically, if you've read any of the comics, I think he does eventually settle on Jason Thunderberger as the frog's
I
name.
love
So the last name that he gives him is the
Right.
one that sticks. The one that he comments is a great frog name. Which
Because the
it
character
is.
Jason Thunderberger, if you just listen to his voice, he kind of sounds like a frog. He talks like this, and it's like a rabbit.
Can I say, I think one of my favorite gags in the entire show is how we start hearing about Jason Thunderberger, and you make a mental picture of what he is in your mind.
Right, because you know how these stories always go. It's like, oh, he's going to go up against like the
Like-
jock football player or something. No, it's some weird kid
Right.
in a green suit.
It's even weirder than Wirt, which is awful.
Exactly. It's so good, and they even tease it at the football game where like this guy in like a Letterman jacket is like, "Hey, are you spying on Sarah?" And he's like, "No," and he's like, "Yeah, Jimmy." It's so
Which shows
good,
up-
but it's so relatable too in a way. Like when you're in high school and you're a nerd, and like you got your eye on another nerd, your competition is not some jock. It's
other
another
nerds.
nerd.
And what do nerds hate in life more than other nerds?
Nothing at all.
Oh man. So I mean, I guess at this point we've kind of teased it out. We can talk about like the twist in the show, or do we want to talk about more about characters here? Because there's
Like the framing
Yeah.
device, or I guess it is the twist because they wait until the
Right.
end to reveal it.
but like the twist in the show, which again, last chance. If you haven't seen the show, stop and go watch it. Is that Greg and Wirt are actually in some kind of like dreamlike state, and the second to last episode, you discover that they're just regular kids who have fallen
From modern times.
in modern times, who have just kind of fallen into sort of a comatose state after Wirt tries to tell the girl that he likes her, and then Greg screws it up and all hell breaks loose.
Can we appreciate the mixtape that he made for his lady? That's a nice
Aw.
way to go about telling a girl that you like her.
A mixtape of poetry and clarinet.
Clarinet.
I know we had talked about him being, like a geek or whatever, but that's the way he did it, and I was just like, "Aw, a mixtape."
Oh.
Oh man.
Y'all are both just like, "Aw."
Oh man.
No, my wife and I used to make each other mixtapes all throughout high school.
That is so sweet.
They were mixed CDs, but the concept still remains the same. So, but it was never us doing the music and poetry.
But
so
then
that's a very special. touch,
yeah,
I
that's
would say.
that's a special brand of nerd that I don't know that I can attain in this life. But
yeah, if you think about it, Wirt's even bigger of a nerd because he plays clarinet and he's not even in band.
that's true, yeah, because he's not on the marching band with anybody.
He's not in the marching band
At the football game.
He plays clarinet in his spare
I
time.
did not pick up on that, but damn.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Oh, but then it's revealed then that everything that's happened up in the preceding episodes up to the next to last episode is all a metaphor for Wirt's love life, basically. Because you get that one episode, I think it's the third or fourth episode, where they go to that tavern and they're asking for directions, and all the tavern's people care about is what is Wirt's story? Oh, he must be a young lover, and he's on a journey to reclaim his lost love, and here's how we're gonna help you. And they sing this amazing song about how they're gonna all help him on his wedding day.
And get paid because they're all tailors and
Right.
cobblers, and calligraphers.
But that's the first hint that Wirt is actually after something, and it's just, oh, he's got a crush on someone and doesn't know how to tell her.
right.
And once you see the end of the show, you can go back to the rest of the episodes and start piecing together oh, that's why he's talking about this. That's why the show cares about, that's why Greg brings up rock facts all the time. It's because he stole a rock out of somebody's
It's a
garden.
rock fact.
Oh, the rock facts are so good.
Oh, yes, they are. And why he has pockets full of candy, which is the best visual gag in the first episode, was when he's leaving a trail of candy, but he'll just stop and just do candy explosions every once in a while. It's very good. We have the other major character we haven't touched on is Beatrice.
Beatrice is interesting. I don't really know what to make of her, because she's one of the people that exist in the world of the unknown.
She is throughout with them for what? She's in
Pretty much every episode, yeah.
I think maybe she's not in 9, but other than that, I think she's in every single one.
Yeah.
She's a bird. She's a bluebird. And she can talk.
I noticed something was going on with Beatrice because she happens to be colored the same as the transgender flag. And that's your first clue that, oh, Beatrice isn't a bird, is she? And it turns out, no, she's not. She's a person. Because something has happened to her in the unknown.
I got confused about why she and her whole family got turned into birds. Because if I remember the story correctly, it was her who threw a rock at a bird.
Mm-hmm.
And they turned her into a bird, but then they also turned her whole family into birds. That's kind of overkill, right? Because shouldn't it just be her?
Yeah, but this is an old school.
Yeah, that's how witches' curses go, I guess. Think about Beauty and the Beast.
But then also, as she retells the story, she said she never went back after that happened. So, did her family just, turn into, bluebirds one day, and, Beatrice wasn't there, and they're just well, what the hell happened?
Maybe.
Because, did Beatrice throw the rock at the bird in front of them? Or was she just, out in the woods, and then, her mom was in the kitchen at the house somewhere else, and just, turned into a fucking bird?
It's not... they don't really make it clear.
Kind of reminds me of the Metamorphoses, where Gregor Samsa wakes up as a beetle, and you don't really ever know why.
Right. Was Grandpa in the bed upstairs and just woke up as a bird?
The other question is, even if they changed into birds, I think in the last episode we see that their house is the house that the woodsman is in, the mill house in the first
Yeah,
episode.
that's true.
But then they're all in a tree for whatever reason when they rescue Wirt in I think it's also the 10th episode.
That's when it gets into stuff where I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, it's sometimes maybe it's best not to overthink it. Maybe at that point we're just like, okay,
But, like,
this is just what the storyboarders
yeah,
did.
they needed to put him
that's what they
somewhere,
did.
so let's just put him in
There.
this house. We had the house
Yeah.
asset. But like that's why I think this show is so good, is because you can make those inferences and you can pick apart these threads, because like they didn't just do it for no reason.
Yes.
And I think one aspect of the show that cannot be overlooked is the music of the show. We've kind of touched on it. The songs in this show are so funny, like kind of not even on purpose.
Some of them are really good.
I first watched this when my daughter was still in diapers, and I used to sing Potatoes and Molasses when I was changing any poopy
Aw.
diapers. Because it's somewhat thematically appropriate,
Yeah.
I guess, but also just a cute song to sing to a little kid to calm them when you're changing
That's
their
true.
diaper.
It's funny you say that, and it also kind of like grosses me out, because not like anything bad towards your daughter, because like this afternoon
No.
we had like baked potato, and I made Joseph try mashed potatoes and syrup.
And how was it?
It tasted like sweet potato casserole, kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
Because I was like, if
Not
we're gonna
bad.
do this
Okay.
podcast, this was after a glass of wine. I was like, if we're gonna do this and talk about this song, we should try it.
I want to know what potatoes and molasses taste
Yeah.
like.
Well, I'm sorry to have tainted your thoughts on
And then
Potatoes
you're
and
just
Molasses
like,
with
I
the
sing
thoughts
this
of
song
chi-
while I deal with shit.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring children's feces into it, but I did.
You should just talk
so
about
sorry
video
about
games
that.
instead.
But I mean,
Wow.
like, I'll give it this. It is, in fact, sweeter than algebra class. So Greg's not wrong.
Oh, yes. A lot of really good songs. Most of them are not, they're not sung by the cast. Potatoes and Molasses is one of the few exceptions to that,
Right.
actually.
And
I think my favorite song is the one that's on while they're on the frog ferry.
Yes.
the one that's
Yeah.
actually called Over the Garden Wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I want to call him Jason Funderburker, the frog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frog.
But the one that he sings,
The frog sings.
his voice, when he actually like starts singing and stuff, the one that gets him the record deal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's a whole episode where they stow away on like a
Frog steamboat.
It's like everybody on the steamboat is frogs, and they have to like try to blend in. So they do the gag where like there's three of them stacked on top of each other in a trench coat, and the frog's head is poking out the top. And they ask the frog to sing, and lo and behold, the frog has a beautiful singing voice.
Yes. I think that's the fellow who did the voice of the Vegetable Man in Tome of the
Maybe
Unknown,
so, yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. CW something
Right.
or another. I forget his name at the moment.
But just this, I wanted to call it a movie. It kind of is a movie, but like
It's yeah.
this thing's relationship to music. Like I love how funny a lot of the songs are, because like normally nobody would want to listen to old-timey sort of Dixieland jazz songs about steamboats and things, but there's something about the show that makes this, I guess, more palatable, makes it something that I would actually want to listen to in my everyday life. Like I have listened to the courting song like a dozen times today, because I think it's just so strange and funny.
Well, see, I think I like the different types of songs, because like you said, like that Steamboat Frog song, that was like it sounded different, but then you had that Highwayman song.
Yeah.
I want to say in like episode 3, and then in episode 8 maybe, where Greg goes to the Cloudland or whatever, and the
Yes.
Old North Wind.
Yeah.
Like I liked how that was like the Cab Calloway kind of
Yeah, that's
like
got like
dun
a
dun dun
like a New
dun
Orleans jazz
dun
kind of
dun
thing.
dun. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So
And the fact that like that's what Greg dreams about is hilarious to me. Like that's Greg dreams in like even more kiddie animation than we're already looking at, and he thinks about these like old songs from the 20s and 30s.
See,
It's great.
what I thought was that was, so, like we think this is him in like purgatory and stuff like that. Was that heaven?
Maybe. It could be.
Because like obviously
Yeah.
Greg is like, obviously Greg, if you believe in heaven, Greg would go to heaven, right?
Right.
And like they're in purgatory, and I mean there was like an angel character lady, so
I really like that dream sequence because it's like that very old style of animation, which is very kind of off model. Like the angel heads are really interesting.
It's kind of like that Cuphead game.
It's a lot like Cuphead, but the biggest thing it reminds me of is, are you guys familiar with Henry Darger?
No.
So he was an outside. He's considered one of the sort of the premier people in American outside art. He was a janitor, I believe, at a Catholic school, and throughout his entire life, he created these illustrated stories. The title is "The Story of the Vivian Girls and What is Known as the Realms of the Unreal of the Glandeco Angelinian War Storm Caused by the Child Slave Rebellion."
Whoa. Okay.
I'm gonna let that sink in for a moment, but his characters in this were like these angel baby girls that were very strange looking and off model, and I can't help but feel that some of the imagery in Greg's dream sequence.
Yeah, Joseph showed me the picture now. That does look very similar.
Sort of a similar steez or reference to this. Fascinating stuff if you want to look into that, by the way. The Smithsonian Museum of American Art has a really great outsider art exhibit, which is one of my favorite areas in all of the Smithsonian museums, and I believe they have a one of the books from his Realms of the Unreal.
Ooh, nice.
And it's the title Tome of the Unknown seems to echo that as well a little bit. I'm wondering if Joel McHale. I wonder if the creator had this in mind when he was doing Tome of the Unknown.
I mean, it's possible because so much of this show just feels like they're drawing from so many different elements. Like, just even like you said, that animation and that style of art, the first thing it reminds me of is our buddy Craig Kringle, who runs the Weird Christmas accounts, and all he does is post like old-timey postcards from like 100 years ago, and every single one of them looks like that.
Yes, yeah.
And
you get that in the second episode as well, Hard Times at the Huskin Bee, where you have all this like pumpkin imagery and like black cats and things like that, and it's just like a Halloween postcard from the 1920s brought to life, essentially.
That is
yes,
hands down my favorite episode too.
It's very good, and I was hoping somebody would mention their favorite episode because I want to know what everybody's favorite episode is. What is yours?
Well, I guess I broke the seal on that one. So my favorite is episode 2. It's Hard Times at the Huskin Bee, and it's just because, like you said, all that classic like Halloween imagery, the black cats, the skeletons, the pumpkin people. But then it gets very sinister very quickly because you've got that gigantic friggin' pumpkin man that just like yells at them for interrupting their party. And you think like, oh, they're gonna die here today.
He turns out to be super nice.
Yeah. And it just changes on a dime, and it's like they ratchet up the creepiness factor because like you get that one random shot of like a pumpkin person carving another pumpkin person, and it's just like that's the thing that kind of the kind of thing that gives me nightmares. And I love that. So that's my answer. Nikki, what about you?
Hold on, I found out something really cool about that episode.
Okay.
The place where that happened was called Pottsfield and all that.
Pottsfield, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they said that was a reference to a potter's field, which is where lesser people were buried, like homeless or unidentified bodies and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so,
that's
like-
a really cool connection.
Yeah, where they're out there like digging up and they find those skeletons. So I wonder if like Pottsfield is like in the unknown, where just like
We're just oh god, all the random people just
the random people just like put on pumpkin suits and party all the time.
It's like a party it's like the
Unidentified people's party of the unknown.
the unmarked grave people having their moment of fun, I guess.
Yeah, and I thought that was really neat.
That's cool.
I think I have 2 favorite episodes, but I don't want to say both of them because one of them could be Brad, so I'm just going to say one.
No, go ahead. Say both.
Okay.
We can have the same favorite episode. It's fine.
Okay, well, I think I really like Schooltown Follies because I think where Greg hates school and stays outside and plays the game Two Old Cats
Yes.
is fucking amazing. And he's like, no, that cat's too old. And you just show, it reminds me of my sister's cat, Savannah, which looks like an actual gremlin. It's that old.
I'm gonna tell her you said that.
Well, she might be listening to this later. And so, and then like just the whole idea of this, school teacher, forget like the animals singing in the banger Potatoes and Molasses, which is the best song or one of the best songs, but like the school teacher who loves this man and like won't even teach the children, just like like fuck those kids.
Oh yeah, she sings the song where she's like spelling his name and talking about all the awful things he's done to her.
I just think that's hilarious too. And then like Jimmy Brown, the guy, he doesn't ditch her. He's just a dumbass stuck in a gorilla suit.
It's very good.
Yeah. And like her dad, and I just think that whole episode, like from start to finish, is hilarious.
Just like every little idea is like, what? Really? Yep, we're running with this.
Yeah. But I mean, like, Two Old Cats could potentially be the funniest thing to me in like the whole series. And like, no, that cat's too old, and you just see like the little raccoon boy go, "Oh."
The raccoon wearing like the clothing is probably my favorite part of that episode.
Yeah, it's so good.
And even then, just the idea of like a family paying for a school to teach animals how to be people.
Right. And like the dad, when all of it goes south and he's like, who thought that teaching animals in school would be a bad idea? And then he just like takes a nap on the ground in the middle of the woods with all these instruments.
Then let's steal them.
Like that's the best idea he had in that moment. Like, okay, sir, you're obviously a smart businessman. Like, what the hell? So I think some of them are very, very funny, but that one is just awesome. And then I think I've touched on this before. I like Lullaby and Frogland because I like the music in that one a lot. And then I just think like the cop chase scene is funny. And then like the tadpoles. I mean,
oh, they keep dropping the tadpoles.
Yeah. I mean, they basically just like throw them overboard and everything like that. And that's so, I mean, I don't want to say funny because it's basically like infanticide.
But then you're like, well, they're tadpoles. That's where
Yeah.
they belong anyway.
So
They'll swim in the water.
like,
It's fine.
damn. But I think that episode, those are my 2 funniest episodes, which is why I like them the most. And then, it's like, well, how upset can they be? Is it the oboe that he ends up playing?
Yeah.
And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, will they be that upset with the oboe? And then it shows the crowd and they're like, ah!
We want the oboe.
Why? Why is there no oboe player?
And again, that's foreshadowing for later when you find out that Wirt plays the clarinet.
You know? And then I just thought it was cute that all these fancy frogs took this whole big old boat to just go get in the mud.
It's like a spa day.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and Greg's like,
Yeah.
I call that mud right there. So those are my favorite episodes.
That's great. Bradford, what about you?
My favorite is probably Mad Love.
Oh, okay. We haven't really talked about that one yet.
With Unky Endicott. The episode starts and we just smash cut to them having dinner with this really rich guy, and it turns out that Beatrice has gotten them into this mansion and told this rich foolish man that Greg and Wirt are his nephews, and they're having dinner with him in order to steal his possessions in order to get enough money for the ferry. Also, at this point, they also have a talking horse with them for this one episode, and I love this character. There's a really great exchange at the beginning of the episode where they're like, "You're talking bird," and he's like, "Well, Frank's a talking horse. He can do whatever he wants," and he just goes, "I want to steal." It's very good. And Beatrice and the talking horse spend most of the episode trying to steal as much, like, everything that's not nailed down in this house. But it's got some cute overtones, because you come to find out that the house keeps getting expanded, and you get these. It's a little bit spooky because the main rich guy, Endicott, thinks that he's seen a ghost of a woman and he's entranced with her. I think the idea of being like entranced with a ghost is I like that in as a horror concept.
Yeah. That
you're not terrified of them, but actually like interested in the ghost. And then it also has sort of, it kind of harkens back. Are you guys familiar with the Winchester Mystery House?
Ooh, yeah.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah. So Uncle Endicott basically has so much money that he keeps expanding it. For those not familiar with the Winchester Mystery House, it's an actual house in San Jose, where the widow of I believe the founder of Winchester Firearms, built a massive mansion and would keep expanding on it. And the apocryphal story is that she was told by a mystic that she would be haunted by the ghosts of anybody that was killed by a Winchester firearm.
Yeah.
And so she was doing this in order to confuse and allay the ghosts. That's the apocryphal story and the more fun one. And then, they interviewed people and they said, well, no, she just wanted to support local artisans and things like that and kept expanding her house. But it's a really weird house that has like a bunch of twisty-turny pathways and was constantly expanding and was never, took a long time to be properly mapped and has secret passages everywhere. And the story of Uncle Endicott just makes me think of that. And we come to find out that the woman that he's seen is actually his business rival, who is so also fabulously wealthy that she has expanded her mansion and they've sort of linked their mansions together and live in one giant mega mansion that is connected because they keep expanding it. It's a cute twist and it's funny.
And they wind up falling in love at the end, and it's very cute.
Yeah, and we get some minor character development with Beatrice and Wirt, but overall it's just kind of like a cute, funny, episode that the stakes are not too high. And I just like it. It kind of is in my mind, it's kind of an idea of what the series would be like if it wasn't like an actual weekly cartoon series. I feel
like the creepy house of the week or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I will preface that, or add to that by saying I'm glad that this was not any longer than it was, because I think it's perfect as a mini series.
Yes, absolutely.
Any longer and they might have spoiled the mood, but this one is just, it's almost a filler episode, but I really like it. And everybody gets like really funny interactions and good gags and jokes and whatnot.
I remember there being like one really cool aspect about that episode was that like the uncle was going to give them 2 cents for the ferry. And then, like if this really was purgatory, you get like money for the ferry.
Oh, the river Styx and the ferryman.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
And so like
Good call.
But then, you see Greg and he throws the money away and he's like, I got no sense at all.
I've got no sense at all.
So this could be, he's always fighting death kind of in this series and stuff like that. Because he's always the optimistic one and Wirt's the one who loses hope. But he gives them money for the ferry. And so when they did that, I was kind of just like,
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that. And then I didn't notice this in the first time that I watched it, but in episode 9, Wirt in modern times Wirt and Greg are in a graveyard, and there's a grave that says Endicott on it.
It's Quincy Endicott's
grave. So we know
grave.
that Percy Endicott's grave, so that leads more into the idea of the unknown being purgatory or the afterlife.
Right.
And it's there's like lots of little nuggets there, and I didn't even think about the ferryman one. That's awesome.
Who knew that?
Yeah, that's
who knew that the river Styx was traversed by frogs?
It could be.
That's wonderful.
It's even better that like Beatrice sends them into his house to literally just steal enough money for the ferry, which is 2 cents.
Well, there was another great interaction on it. It's like. Oh, it was like Wirt's talking to Beatrice. He's like, "You're gonna scam this old man." And she's like, "No, I think we're just gonna steal from him."
Like he's not gonna notice. Come on. Well, okay, we're coming around to the 1 hour mark here, folks. So I guess now's the time, and I have to say, like, any parting thoughts about Over the Garden Wall before we have to do some kind of a rating of this?
I had a question.
Okay.
So there's a part where it's in the intro and it's also towards the end of it. We see a fish in a boat with a line and a reel. Would you call this fishing? And is it considered cannibalism if he catches a fish?
Well, did you notice what he actually caught though later in the show?
Well, didn't he catch?
He catches a turtle.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't.
One of the little black turtles.
And turtles, the black turtles are pervasive, but I can't for the life of me figure out what they're supposed to symbolize or like what their whole thing
We were
is.
talking about that too, trying to figure out if it's evil, with the dog and it turning into like a dire wolf, but then I'm confused with the lady who eats them.
Yeah, the auntie is
Auntie
actually
Whispers?
Auntie Whispers ends up actually being a good character.
Right.
And she has a giant basket full of them and eats them.
Why does she eat them and not be evil? That's what confused me about the turtles.
Right, because you get the idea that the turtles mean something and have some kind of power in this universe. But, I mean, I guess it's...
Like, they're linked to the mysterious black figure, the beast.
Yeah, we haven't even really talked about the beast yet, have we?
No, or the woodsman much.
No.
Voiced by the late, great Christopher Lloyd, no less.
Christopher Lloyd died? When did that happen?
Didn't he die? Did Christopher Lloyd... Am I thinking of somebody else?
I don't think Christopher Lloyd is dead.
Oh my god, I'm thinking of somebody else. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
And it's not Tim Curry, because Tim Curry is also in this show.
I'm thinking of Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh my god,
Sorry.
yeah, Gilbert Gottfried has definitely...
That would be a hilarious woodsman.
Well, no, I'm not confused. I'm not confusing Christopher Lloyd with Gilbert Gottfried, but they both have very iconic, easily identifiable voices.
Leave those children alone, beast!
You get where I'm going with
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
You could see why I was getting my brain could, like, mash the two up, sort of.
I'll
Like, very iconic character actors and have a lot of voice work under their belts.
I'll give you that one, Brad. It's okay.
I'm sorry, Christopher Lloyd. I wish you many years of good health.
You truly like startled me for a sec because I was like, did I not hear about that?
How bad am I gonna feel if Christopher Lloyd bites it in like the next 2 weeks?
You hold your tongue, sir.
I know.
What were we even talking about?
Oh my goodness. We were talking about the Beast in the Woods.
Oh yeah, okay. It was like, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what to make of the Beast in the Woodsman, and I don't know that I need to.
I liked the woodsman.
The Woodsman's an interesting character, but like
he's a sorrowful character.
He's a sad, very, very sad character. Yeah,
but he's so like, he so wants to help the children all throughout the whole thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's like, I wouldn't even say mean to him in the beginning. He's just like, watch out for this guy. Y'all come in here. But I mean, as he's saying that and like with that tough love aspect, what does he do? He puts him in the house. He starts a fire,
He swings his axe around at him.
Yeah, but then he takes it. I don't even think that was meant to be mean to them. I think that was meant to be like, what are y'all doing? Where are y'all at? What are you,
Right.
like, he's probably more concerned about kids being lost in the woods because he knew what could happen to them while the children didn't. So what did he do? He takes them back. He lights a fire. He's like, y'all stay here. Don't go out there. But then again, I'm confused because when they mess up his meal and stuff like that, he's like, get the fuck out of here. So I like him, but like, it's confusing.
And of course, the kids just antagonize him because he's a creepy old man with an axe.
Yeah.
They don't really listen to him at all.
I think they're confused about what the beast really is until they figure it out. Because it's
Right,
unknown.
Yeah, and somebody drops a hint that whoever has the lantern is with the beast, and we come to find out later that the lantern houses the soul of the beast, and he's unknowingly feeding it because he's been lied to that it's his daughter's soul.
So who was that lady and how does she know so much?
Which lady?
The one who said that whoever holds the lantern is the beast, because she wasn't necessarily wrong, was she?
No.
I can't remember which episode.
I think that was in the one where it goes to the tavern, because the tavern people know all about the beast.
Oh, that's right.
And
because she was right. In a way, she's right. Because the beast dies when the lantern goes out. So the woodsman, is the woodsman the beast?
No.
But think about it. When the woodsman kept the lantern alive, like lit.
Right.
So the lantern is the beast.
Right. He's carrying out the will of the beast because he's been lied to about the lantern. And then, the beast is a shadow. And so if you put out a lantern, there can't be any shadow.
That's true.
So there's that element going on. And then, but I think whoever said that we shouldn't overthink it too much is right. I think the series just needed a big bad, and I think the beast is a pretty good way of doing it because it's represents the shadows in the forest, and that your imagination and what you imagine to be, what the unknown in the forest is probably scaring you more than what actually exists. But it's also, you see in the last episode, it's sort of a metaphor for like the cruel indifference of nature.
True.
Yeah.
And two, like, with so many different, like, folk stories and horror tales going on in this series, like, to have a running through line of a character who's made a deal with the devil kind of just makes sense.
Well,
Right.
the beast is, didn't we see where it was based on, like, a Norse mythical creature called Elishi?
Yeah, we've read that. And...
Yeah, it was like a man mixed with woods that has ill intentions.
Right.
Huh.
So,
Neat.
believe us when we say we did our homework, but also so have they, because like they pull some really deep cut mythical stuff in this show.
That's why this show is so fucking cool.
Yeah.
It really is. I just thought of another parallel with Mad Love, by the way.
What's that?
House of Leaves. Have you guys heard or read House of Leaves?
A long time ago.
Yeah, just the whole concept, because it's the only episode that takes place mainly indoors, but it's this whole, the whole idea of these ever expanding non-Euclidean liminal spaces. I think that's also why I like that episode so much too. Anyways,
it gets into like stuff like The Shining, where like you're not really supposed to understand the layout of it, because if you did, then it wouldn't be scary. Stuff like that.
Yes.
Again, I'm just pulling random things out of the ether now.
And that's why this show is so good, because you can make so many parallels that may be intentional or maybe not,
and
but they're there.
And I think that's why it's such a perfect thing to watch at Halloween, because like it's all the horror stories at once.
But it's not too spooky.
It's not too spooky.
As much as we analyze it, like how we touched on in the beginning, it would be so good for a younger audience, because they may touch on this like in-depth stuff, and then they may not. And then they can rewatch it again. And it's almost like you can grow with the show,
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yes.
as the world, I don't want to say as the world will tear you down, but as you may like grow older and, you know, like maybe hardship or even death has been introduced into your life, you may see the show in a new light.
Definitely.
You know?
Absolutely. I think, and the other thing that is a big merit to your point is that this show is just great, even just taken at a surface level. Like,
yeah,
it's so fun. It's funny. It's well animated. The music's great. Like, you can not dive any deeper than the surface level, and it's still a great time.
Exactly. And I mean, it comes from that era of like Cartoon Network where like this was them in their peak, like Adventure Time, regular show kind of heyday where...
This was not their peak. Don't you do that to Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Laboratory and
we got some words
and all
here.
that. This is not the peak of Cartoon Network, sir.
Oh, I'm gonna have to agree with both of you. I'm gonna be the contrarian, and I think this is Cartoon Network at its peak when it's discovering more narrative style. You have Adventure Time, which had some narrative arcs. You have Steven Universe, which is, I will still go to bat as a masterpiece in children's like linear storytelling for a cartoon. But yes, I have to agree the oldies are great. You have Dexter's Lab, you have Ed, Edd and Eddy, one of the greatest cartoons ever made. Powerpuff Girls, just absolute, like, knocking it out of the park with the cartoons back in the you know, late 90s, early aughts. So.
Teacher, may I raise my hand and finish the thought that y'all just like beat out of me a second ago?
Yes.
What I was trying to say was like it's that from that peak Cartoon Network era where like all these shows like Adventure Time and Regular Show and like, God, what's the other one? Steven Universe. Like they're all these like great kids shows, but like really, honestly, deep down, these are all shows for like college students and above. Like adults are watching these shows, and I think they know that.
Yeah.
And so, like they know that like this is Over the Garden Wall is a show that's going to appeal to kids, but like they really kind of made it for like everybody in mind because like adults, like the three of us have talked about this for an hour and we're pulling out like ancient mythology, folklore stuff out of the ether just because it's there for us to talk about.
We have nothing better to do with our lives.
Exactly. This isn't a show for children. Are you kidding me? No kid cares about this stuff.
They get to watch Greg do funny stuff, so it's there's something for everybody.
And even then, Greg doing the funny stuff with the frog is my favorite part of this show.
It's so
like
good.
like little random things like, you know, we'll walk into frame at having done something, you know, in the last scene. And he walks in, and Greg and the frog are just sitting on the ground. They're holding their hands up above their heads, just staring at each other. It's just such an odd little thing. It's like, what is it? I don't know. It's just silly. And like, I like the silly in this show.
He wishes for him to have fingernails so he can play the guitar better.
Or like, Wirt tells Greg to take the frog out of his pants. And then he cuts to the frog, and the frog's just like crossing his arms, and Greg goes, he can do what he wants. I could go on, but we shouldn't because we've already crossed over the hour mark, and we need to wrap this up. So I guess we're going to treat this like a movie tonight, folks. We're going to rate this. This is not our typical crankometer because we're in Home for the Horrordays territory. Brad, what is our new metric? I forget.
Is it the spookometer? No.
That sounds right. Let's go with spookometer.
That sounds right.
I'm sure
Booker can correct it. Booker probably is keeping tabs. They'll set us straight.
Please, Booker, if you're still doing this, thank you so much, and you'll keep track of this for us. But typically our crankometer, Nikki has lost interest at this point.
I'm still here.
Typically, our crankometer is our X and Y axis for rating movies and shows that we watch on this podcast. The X axis is how holiday related the thing is, and the Y axis is how good it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a -5 to +5 scale. So, Bradford, Nikki, how spooky, I guess we're gonna say, is Over the Garden Wall? How Halloween themed is it?
Is it how related to Halloween it is, or how spooky is it?
I think
It's more the former. It's how related
Yeah, like
to Halloween it is.
Okay, then I would
Holiday
say like
related.
a 2.
Okay,
It's not really related to
Alright.
Halloween at all, because the Halloween that we think of,
that's true.
because we only see it like Halloween in the one episode. I mean, he wears the costume throughout the show, but we don't even know it's a costume.
Right. But then you get that one, the hard times. No, what's the hard time?
Hard Times
Like
at
the Huskin Bee. Okay, yeah. You get that episode, and that is like extremely Halloween. Like that's fall harvest, jack o' lantern central. I'm good with a 2.
So-
Bradford, what do you think?
A 2 or 3, yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, you're throwing a 3 at us now.
I could.
A 2 I think is fair.
Okay.
A 2 is fair because it's more I always think of this as more autumnal than Halloween specific.
That's fair.
That's what I feel too.
I'm
okay.
So
Then I think a 2. I think a 2 is
Perfect.
fine then.
and now the quality quotient, the y-axis. How good do we think this is, folks? I mean, does it get any better than this?
Come on. It's a 5.
It's a 5.
It's like
I would go. 5.
No question.
This is a natural 5, ladies and gents. We've talked about the virtues of this thing for an hour. I mean, if you're not convinced by now, what else can we say?
I don't know that I have any complaints about it whatsoever.
No.
I can't think of any criticisms, really.
No, I mean, like I said, I think Wirt's kind of a wet sandwich, but that's the way he's supposed to be, and that's fine.
Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, a positive 2, positive 5. Stick that on our Halloween scale, and let's soldier on with Home for the Horror Days, because, folks, ladies and gentlemen, the real spooks are yet to come. Home for the Horror Days will continue because we have a couple of really fun, spooky pieces of programming lined up for you this month. And maybe if you're really good, we'll keep the spooks a-coming in November. Maybe, sorta. J-Man, Johnny 5, has convinced me that, what we really need this year to combat the coming onslaught of Mariah Carey. That's right. Shrieks Giving.
Shrieks giving.
So we'll see about that in due time. But for now, thank you all for listening. I've had a blast talking about Over the Garden Wall, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
It was fun.
Yeah, Bradford, Nikki, thank you so much for finally joining us on the show.
Yes.
It was fun, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Um,
It gets lonely just us two, so thank you. Should come back more often.
So if you want to send us anything at all on the internet, you can find us on Blue Sky or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram at Christmas Creeps. We're on all of those things. I mostly use Blue Sky and Twitter. That's just how I'm wired. Or you can follow us in our Discord channel. We'll put the link to that in our show notes. That's kind of where we chit chat and post memes and have a really fun time talking about nonsense all day long.
Did you get our email out there?
Not yet. The email, if you want to email us anything, it's at xmascreeps@gmail.com.
Yay.
And last but not least, I will implore you folks, please go to your podcast listening device of choice and leave us a star rating and a review. That lets people know that this is a show worth listening to, and we would love to get some more engagement as the spooky season and soon the holiday season really ramps up. So tell a friend about this show today, won't you, please? Thank you. I love you.
If you're any of my friends, you should do that. Especially my work friends who said they would listen to this.
Oh, God, we have to start the whole show over because I didn't know about that. Oh, no.
These are people you know. Oh, dear.
Quite a few of my work friends said they would listen to this very one episode.
Oh.
Oh, no. Well, folks, if you're one of those people out there listening, I hope I didn't disappoint you.
Shout out to Coag.
Thanks for listening, and come on back for more Home for the Horror Days here in Christmas Creeps. My name is Joseph Wade. Thank you for listening.
I'm Bradford.
Nikki.
Good night, folks.
Good night, everybody.
Happy
Christmas. Ba-ba-ra-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.